The first method is called as al-iqsam, in which the magician gets into a dark room and he swears in the name of the chief jinn. He says, "Oh chief jinn, please come." He praises him constantly, and he wears filthy clothes, and he gets into the impure state of the body. So when he starts his rituals, he lights up fire, and in the fire he puts bad odor or good smell based on the subject, based on their requirement. For example, he got the requirement to create differences and divisions between husband and wife. In that case, he puts bad odor. And if he wants to create unconditional love between husband and wife, between two friends, between two partners, between two lovers, based on the requirement, he puts good smell, or he burns incense sticks. So after a while, he praises the chief jinn, he calls him again and again. Then a phantom appears before him in the form of a dog or a snake, and he communicates to the jinn. He dictates what to be done and what not to be done. And in most of these cases, he takes the sweaty garment of the person on whom the magic has to be done, the patient or the victim. He takes the sweaty garment, he ties the knot on the sweaty garment and says, "This has to be done to this person, this has to happen, this has to happen." And in most of these cases, he hears a voice, "Okay, what do you want me to do? Your wish is my command." And then the magician says that this has to be performed, this has to be done, this has to be taken care of. So this is the first method. Now the second method, which is called as a-zabiha. They use this method as a way of slaughtering the animal in the name of the chief jinn. So they ask you, or the person who visits the magician, he tells the person to get an animal with certain specifications. For example, black crow, or black sheep, or black ram, or black pigeon, or an owl. They specifically ask for black color because jinn like black color, and they slaughter it in the name of the chief jinn. And they ask you or the person who visits them to put the carcass at a place where people don't usually pass by, because these are the places where jinn reside. These are the homes of the jinn. This is the second method. Now the third method, which is called as as-sufliya. This is the worst form of disbelief. In this method, magician wears Quran on his foot, and he walks into the toilet, he sits in the toilet, and he does all the incantations and the chanting and praising of the jinn, and then he comes back to his room, and then the jinn comes to him and talk to him. This is the third method. Now the fourth method, which is called as an-najasa. In this, the magician writes the Quran with the menses discharge, or the dirty fluids. They use this blood to write the Quranic ayats, and this is how they please the jinn, and later the jinn come to them and talk to them, and they carry out the task. The fifth method they use is called as al-tanqis. In this, they anagrammatize the words of the Holy Quran. For example, my name is Abu Talha. So Talha, the reverse of the word Talha is Ahlat Uba. Ahlat Uba. So, for example, I have to say Allah, then the magicians say Halala. Anagrammatize, reverse. So the magicians use this technique, this way, to read the Quran, and this is how the jinn gets pleased with them, and they come at their beck and call to execute the orders and the task. The sixth method they use is called as at-tanjim. In this, the magicians believe that gods descend from certain stars. So they wait for those stars to happen on a particular date, on a particular time, and they believe that these stars appear once in a year, and they wait for that time, and they get into water up to the waist or up to the neck, and they look at the star, and they praise the star, and they chant the praising of the star, and they believe that the gods descend from the star. But in reality, in Islam, we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created stars for beautifying sky and for navigation purpose. It has nothing to do with the fortune. And in fact, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if anyone gets into astrology and if anyone learns astrology, then he has learned a branch of magic. And if he gets more into that, then he has learned more magic. So one has to refrain from studying about the movement of stars and the calculation of fate and the fortune. And people even believe that if this star comes into this circle, then your baby will be good and your baby will be bad. So people believe in stars, and they believe that it all happens due to the stars. But stars are just a creation of Allah. Anyway, the seventh method, which is called as al-kafu, and this method is usually used to find the lost objects. For example, you lost gold items, so people reach out to these magicians, and they do this method of al-kafu to call jinn and to carry out the task of black magic. And eighth method, which is called as al-athar, in this the magician asks you sweaty garment, and then he ties knot on that, and he recites Surah Takathur in a very loud way. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim, alhaakumut takathur hatta zurtamal maqabir. Then he goes down, he goes silent, and then he rises again. And then he gives a jerk to the handkerchief. And if the knots, the distance between the knots increases, then he says that you're affected with jinn. If it decreases, then he says that you've got evil eye. So all the things happen with the coordination of jinn. And these are the 8 methods they use to call the jinn. And they have multiple methods. They have multiple methods, and they keep upgrading their methods. But the fundamentals of their ways and methods are these 8. And based on these 8, they keep increasing and upgrading themselves. They have multiple methods to call jinn. And more the person is into disbelief and polytheism, jinns come at his beck and call. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't help us, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't take us in His refuge, then it's impossible